salary. I don't think it's an extraordinarily high salary. And I also have come to learn in my brief time and tenure here that really the chief executive of this community has to essentially
two.
You're watching G.
1, 2.
You're watching GCTV Community Access Cable Channel 15 and
2.
You're watching GCTV, Community Access Cable Channel 15 in Greenfield, Massachusetts.
Good evening. Welcome to the Greenfield City Council meeting on 198th regular meeting at the John Zahn Center, 35 Pleasant Street in Greenfield. This meeting is being recorded, videotaped, and broadcast. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify me at this person. And the recorder is here. Videotaping. No, broadcasting. I don't know, recording. The clerk will call the roll.
Here.
Counselor Burson.
Here.
Counselor Alice.
Present.
Counselor Python. Counselor Dolan. Here. Counselor Gilmore. Here. Counselor Wheeler. Here. Counselor Mayo.
Here.
Counselor Hirschfeld.
Here.
Counselor Mass. Here. President Brunel. Vice President Ricketts.
Here.
Counselor Semple. Present. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 21st and September 18th?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Communications from Superintendent of Schools and School Committee.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We wanted to share a few updates in the schools and then a message from the school committee. So I'll share a few events happening in particular this week. Our Academy of Early Learning students at the preschool have been enjoying field trips to our local orchards. At Federal Street School, today was Family Fun Day, so thank you to the great turnout and all the families and teachers that came. Tomorrow at Newton School is Pajama Night with many community readers, including some of you in this room, from 5 to 6 p.m. It's a wonderful chance to read and enjoy our community at Newton. On Friday from 5 to 6 p.m. at Four Corners is our annual Harvest Sampler, and this is a great event where students actually get to enjoy eating the food that in some cases they've grown in the school gardens. On November 5th, it is Election Day, and I do want to highlight that the schools are closed so that the community can have full access to the school. And this year, I do want to note that there will not be a gym floor covering, and that's in part because it's on order, and you all may know quite a lot about that. But the reason I'm mentioning it is to ask the public to please wipe your feet. When you come in, we have students that are putting up signs, and we're doing our best with this. But we would like to avoid refinishing the floors after they are used. I do want to note that I had an opportunity to testify at GCC on the joint hearing on food insecurity. I was invited to speak on the school nutrition panel and to highlight the need of our students here in Greenfield and also the importance of our local food program, which has just taken so many tremendous strides forward. And to, of course, I'm sure you're all aware that the Senate has unanimously endorsed the Student Opportunity Act. This would invest $1.5 billion in our local school, not just local, but across the Commonwealth over the next several years. And Greenfield does stand to gain quite an influx of Chapter 70 money. The Foundation Budget Review Commission implemented those changes in part this past year. So that's why we saw over $1 million increase in state aid, but we would continue to see increases under the projections. So we want to thank our senators, and also if those of you would like to see this endorsed, please contact your House representatives. On October 21st, there will be a special school committee meeting, and I will turn it over to a member Ekstrom to speak about that. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Susan Ekstrom. I am the secretary on the school committee. Adrienne Nunez, our chair, is not able to be here this evening. She's given me a statement to read, thankfully. So I'm just going to take it away. The school committee has been very busy. Our negotiations with Unit C, also known as the instructional assistants, and Unit A, our teachers, are ongoing. The review of our policy manual has been on hold The review of our policy manual has been on hold momentarily to provide additional meeting space for other pressing issues, including, but not limited to, funding of collective bargaining agreements that are currently being negotiated. On October 7th, the committee convened a, right, I just got bifocals and I'm not really doing well with them, sorry. On October 7th, the committee convened a special meeting to discuss the funding issues in public session. Councilor Wheeler was in attendance as Chair of Ways and Means. There you are. Thank you, Councilor Wheeler, for attending our meeting. For those that may not be aware, the issue under consideration is that the contract stabilization account balance is currently near zero. This means that there is no identified funding source for contracts currently in negotiation and those that are soon to be negotiated. This is a significant concern to the school committee and will see additional deliberation at our upcoming meeting on the 21st. It is the understanding of the committee that funding to replenish the account will be available in November. However, this timeline significantly impacts the course of our negotiations, and no certainty has been provided as to how much funding will be available and deposited into this account. This issue brings up several questions regarding equity of process and access to funding across all city collective bargaining units, precedent in changing practice for newly negotiated contracts and beyond. The committee will resume discussion on this issue as it relates to general practice and as it relates to our current negotiations at our meeting on October 21st. On Monday, we will also review the council's request for an opinion on the proposed change to school committee stipends. The city's need to address floor covering during the November election, and we'll review FY20 budget modifications. Also in motion is the superintendent evaluation and, in November, review of plans for the Green River School building. Any changes or updates to the previously approved plan for programming at the Green River School will be available to the council just after our November 13th regular meeting. As always, thank you for your service and attention to school committee and district happenings.
Are there any questions, Councilor Mass?
Thank you. I believe the council already approved the contract for paraprofessionals, and that included, we have not.
No.
Is that, so that's yet an unsettled contract?
Neither the school committee nor the council have approved that contract.
Well, that's, I guess, I thought we had, because we had a very lengthy conversation, including Councilor Burson, talking about paraprofessionals not making minimum wage. Maybe the cafeteria. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Gilmore?
I don't know if you two are the right ones to ask about the floor covering in the schools. And I do understand that we don't want to have to keep refinishing the floors, but it has been brought to my attention that the floor covering is really difficult for people who have mobility problems and people who need to use a wheelchair to get around, or anyone who might be using crutches. So I wanted to talk a little more about maybe not having a tarp or plastic.
So this may be a bit out of turn because it is intended to come before the school committee on Monday to discuss. It's my understanding that there have been some concerns around accessibility and mobility, and that in particular, Kathy Scott and others have been working to make sure that it's an ADA accessible environment, in particular for Election Day and also all the time. It's also my understanding that the tarp has been ordered but will not be here in time for the election. And so we're taking reasonable precautions to make sure that the floor is safe, but giving the primary importance to people being physically able to access the environment. Does that make sense? And if you're interested, there'll be, this will come up on Monday at the school committee meeting in case the school committee does want to weigh in on school committee facilities.
Councilor Beerson, and then Councilor Dolan, and then Councilor Mayo.
Can you tell me what the wage scale is for the aides?
I cannot, because it's under negotiation. They've reached a tentative agreement. There is significant consideration for increasing the wage scale to attract people to those positions and retain them. That was a considerable factor. And keeping up with minimum wage was a significant point throughout the negotiations.
I hope they're at least $15 an hour.
Thank you.
Councilor Dolan?
I just wanted to clarify, is the new tarp on order going to be ADA compliant? Is that the reason for purchasing it?
That's my understanding. Again, this was purchased through the city, but it was in coordination with our athletic director and the high school. It's my understanding that it has to be custom fit to the space. And right now, essentially, we use a series of tarps, and they overlap. And so there are areas where they lift up. So folks have always done their best to make it an ADA accessible environment, but due to new concerns that were raised, they're really trying to take every precaution, make sure the environment is accessible. So there was a meeting at the high school with the principal, myself, Kathy, the town's ADA representative, a number of other people, our school resource officer, to review those considerations. And having looked at a number of options, my recommendation to the school committee will be to go without any tarp until the new one is ordered, which will be in place for the next election.
Councilor Mayo.
Another access point to on the election day is was brought forward to me that they used the regular access door, but they couldn't. There's a small path that they had to follow in order to get to the voting. To basically keep the kids who were there having lunch headed toward the cafeteria. So there was a small path that was not wide enough for a wheelchair, and people were standing in that area where there was where they needed to get to the voting area. I'm not sure if it was all day. It was just one instance or two that was brought to my attention that they couldn't get. People were just milling about, just standing in a way so that people with wheelchairs or other adaptive equipment couldn't get past them to vote. I mean, eventually they did vote, but I think I'm not sure who monitors that, but if it's the kids or if it's somebody else who monitors that, the access way, could they remind them that they need to stay out of the way so that people with disability access or disability need to have way or use of that? And that was brought to my attention at the last Commission of Disability Act.
So I think the right point of contact is really the ADA coordinator for the town, who I believe is Lindsay Rowe, and also Kathy Scott and the poll workers that are working that election. So to the extent I will pass that along, but again, the schools, our role is really just to make sure everything's in working order when we turn it over to the city for the elections. So I'm just really trying to make sure you know the coordinated effort to prepare. We just do our best to assist. Thank you.
Councilors, please remember to turn on your mics and use them, or otherwise the people at home can't hear you. No. Anything else? Seeing nothing, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm just realizing Kathy's here. Okay, of course. I'm like looking here. No. So there you go.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Playing musical chairs. Communications from mayor, city officers, and employees. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I wanted to bring you up to date on the FY18 audit that was done by Bloom Shapiro. President Renaud and Councilor Wheeler and I and the mayor met with Bloom Shapiro to go over the audit. We invited them back to the November meeting to full council so that you all may have a presentation. I have posted the audit in the council drive. I will send a link out to it so you can review that prior to the meeting. I also have bound copies if anyone wants that. I was going to bring them to the November meeting, but if you would like them sooner, please stop by. I think we'll go over the highlights at the meeting regarding the audit. And as you know, you also voted for Powers and Sullivan to do the 19 audit. And I believe Councilor Wheeler and President Renault have received the engagement letter for that. Anyone have any questions or?
Status of this audit, from Shapiro. We're waiting for a letter from the superintendent.
Oh, the end of year audit. The end of year audit has taken a while, and it was received. That's the report where Bloom Shapiro would look at the end of year report and suggest any corrections to it. The school did not receive that till well into October. And they are waiting for a rep letter. A representation letter basically just says, you provided the information, we based this audit based upon the information you gave us, but it needs to be signed in order for the audit to be released. But then at that point, everything will be complete.
Yeah, just to clarify, Bloom and Shapiro is waiting for the letter from the superintendent and the business manager. Yes, good evening. I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity to share some city business with you. It's going to be broad and in-depth in some areas. I'm going to ask Deputy Superintendent Marlo Warner to come up in a little bit to go through some of the really detailed issues. So first from the mayor's office. Departmental capital planning is in process. Liz has put out all the information, given the directions to the top departments. They're actively involved in their 5-year planning process. I'm sorry, I should move back about 20 paces and I could see everyone. So I want to suggest that we're hopeful that the council will act on this in a timely manner. It's very difficult to have an approved capital process in May or June because it takes you out of the market, takes you out of the game. So an earlier approval for the capital allows our departments to get out there early, get a better price. So in many cases, it's too late, as it was this year and last year. So it takes us out of the game, literally, so that we wait till the next year, the next season of bidding, which is usually March, April for RFPs. So I'd like this council and the new councilors who might be listening to, it's really an advantage for the city to save money, be more efficient, and get the job done if we get that capital improvement plan approved. There's been some discussion about a CPA, the Conservation Preservation Act. I won't be here. I think I have, I don't think so, I know, 76 days left. So I so badly want to quote President Nixon, but I'm not going to. The idea that we could jump into a tax surcharge at this time in the movement of Greenfield is something that we have to seriously consider and at least seriously talk about. So having the council move into putting this on a ballot so quickly is, I think, a bit premature, at least, and maybe reckless at worst. So I think we've had discussions in depth before about the split tax rate in the past. I proposed a dedicated, a residential exemption on taxes earlier this year. That died somewhere in some committee of the council. So I would suggest that we consider that Greenfield is fortunate to have two 121B corporations, entities in the town. One is called the Greenfield Housing Authority. They do housing. The other 121B corporation is the Greenfield Redevelopment Authority. They do redevelopment. So if there's any concern, then the council could stand up and move into those appointed boards, most selected by the mayor, but some selected by the governor, and give them a mission. Tell them what we need after you come up with deciding what we need. So I would say that the CPA is something that should have full discussion across the community, and this responsible body move it forward to the ballot when you have all the answers. RRG is our professional consultants in the assessor's office, and they work in a number of communities across the state. They're familiar with the CPA as well as a number of other state options. So I've requested that they provide us some information so that I can pass it on to the council, so you'll have a wide view of what other communities have experienced with their CPAs. I know in the earlier meeting that Chair Wheeler had with Ways and Means, there was someone made a comment that there's a state promise of 100% reimbursement, and the follow-up discussion kind of leaned on and focused on the fact that the state doesn't really have a 100% reimbursement program. We all know the ones that they promised, and we also badly know the ones that they didn't live up to their promise on. So I wouldn't depend on 100% reimbursement for any projects by the state. I want to say that the veterans, our Upper Pioneer Valley Veterans District is doing extremely well. As you know, last year they were voted #1 in Massachusetts. But a lot of people don't know exactly what they do and what's the result of their effort. So this is, as of 10 days ago, October 1st, more or less, Greenfield has 315 beneficiaries, totaling $485,929.89 in benefits per month. There are 291 veterans, 27 widows or widowers of vets who receive that money monthly in the city of Greenfield. For the district, the 26 towns that we represent, there is $1,492,368.34 coming in each month in VA money, with 1,022 beneficiaries, of which 938 are veterans, into the county. 100% VA service-connected veterans. I'm sorry, let me just repeat that. The numbers are not as high because there's a 5% reduction. The reduction is due to the death of 100% service-connected veterans due to natural causes and suicides. This has accounted for a loss of not only those fine people, but $50,000 each month. The suicides and the highest number of those passing are now coming from the Vietnam-era veterans. Let's move to schools. In FY18, the net school spending for the city of Greenfield was 118.2% of net school spending, which means we were over the required contribution to spending in the Greenfield Public School District by $3.97 million. The FY19 report by DESE is 123.2% over the required net school spending. That translates to $5.15 million over the net school spending amount. Now, this information is publicly available on the DESE website. It's available from city documents sent to state agencies and from the school department, superintendent, or any elected member of the school committee. I personally provided these documents to each. The claim by the superintendent and Councilor Gilmore that the information is unavailable is unfounded. It's available. Currently, the Greenfield Public School is engaged in a turnaround program provided by DESE for performance in the lower 7% of the state public schools. I would suggest any question be directed to the superintendent, who can elaborate in more detail. And lastly, for the schools, the budget for FY20 is not yet approved by the school committee. So we hope to have that done on the 21st, this Monday coming up. That would be the same Monday that the Patriots play the Jets. The money is previously diverted from the city departments by this council will require repayment from various city sources with accounts that are yet to be determined. So Liz may have some direction in that area and may probably provide some options as soon as we can end the year with some of our auditors. The library. We have received the engineer report on the occupancy load and egress requirements for the library building. After discussions with the safety officer, Chief Strand, building commissioner Mark Snow, engineer Michael Rainville, Director Ellen Boyer, and trustee president Doris Cowdery, I will modify my executive order originally issued on the 22nd of August. I will do that tomorrow morning. And for the safety of the staff and public, I will prohibit use of the ground floor meeting rooms, the custodial office, and stack rooms. They will be closed to staff and public until the usage and occupancy plan is approved by the structural engineer. So if you followed it earlier, the first step in this process of dealing with the exposure to liability and potential suits, as well as the high opportunity or probability for accident or incident, I move to have the occupancy load verified or done for the first time for the library. Now we're at that point. The next step is to have the building inspector, Mark Snow, do a detailed walkthrough of the library under the observations that are established by the engineer, and to then make decisions, discretionary or mandatory, on use of various parts of the building. I want to remind everyone that we have already done the calculations. The total amount that we can spend over a 4-year period is $217,000. That includes the last 3 years and this year. So whatever we have to do is going to bump into that 217,000. Over 217 throws it into a complete new arena where the entire building has to be brought up to code. People can argue about the numbers, but it's not going to be $218,000. It's going to be $8 to $9 million. And we have different sources. Anyone's welcome to look at the estimates and the costs, or check with anybody else in the world on the cost of bringing that building up to code. This report is available on the city website as of today. Anyone can go there and read the entire report from Michael Rainville. As I said, the next step is going to be the walkthrough by Commissioner Mark Snow, and we'll move in that direction. We have had discussions with all people involved, as I mentioned earlier. Everyone is aware of the new situation. Economic development. The city received a $825,000 CDBG grant, as we do each year as a mini entitlement community, and we're planning for the disbursement of funds for infrastructure, social services, council on aging, and the building department, or property rehab. The city initial support for a $45,000 and $104,000 grant to Another Castle and Green Space co-work spaces has resulted in continued support by the state for their expansion efforts, as addressed in a recent visit by Lieutenant Governor Polito. We congratulate the two entrepreneurial entities and offer our continued support. Paul Hake mentioned that his local internet provider, GSED, is better and faster than the Los Angeles affiliate. And the mass development grant that you'll be discussing earlier tonight regarding the expansion of the industrial park, we hope will be passed so that we can continue to work and provide the survey and engineering needed to keep that project moving forward in the near future. I'm going to ask Director Warner to come up and we'll discuss some issues dealing with infrastructure. Thank you. Any comments for Liz at all?
Liz, could you bring me up the public comment in the sheets? Oh, okay.
Oh, nobody on that one. Thank you. The first issue I want to touch on is we've just awarded a project for the anaerobic digester, the $1.2 million anaerobic digester to Ty and Bond as the winning bidder, more or less, for the qualifications and experience. We're going to meet with them next week to enter into a negotiating meeting where we'll do the actual contract. Finally, this 5-year initiative for the anaerobic digester could not happen soon enough with the spiraling costs coming up with traveling, hauling, and ridding ourselves of our town sludge. Marlo Warner is going to address a group that under Senator Comerford has brought together to discuss the regional impact of anaerobic digesters and what's really happening across the state and the expense on this sludge. You want to bring us up to date on costs and...
Okay. So Greenfield's costs, as we know, we've talked about it in depth. In 2015, we paid $167,000 for sludge disposal from our wastewater treatment plant. Last year, we came in about $427,000 and some change. So after we set the budget this current year, we received information from Lowell's plant, and that's the place we have the permit to bring our sludge to. They were going to raise our fees 4 cents a gallon, and the hauler was going to raise 1 cent a gallon, which would have equated to about a $180,000 increase this year. And that was after we set the budget. This was information that came in after the fact. So there was a lot of clamoring with the Franklin County Solid Waste District, which we're part of. They negotiated our contract with Lowell and the hauler. So they backed out of it and decided not to increase that 4 cent increase until January 1. So that's going to back us down. The hauling fee, we're paying the 1 cent more per gallon hauling fee now, which is about 6 cents a gallon total. So the increase isn't going to happen until January 1, so that's going to back us down to somewhere about $125,000 increase this year. And that, again, that all depends on, you know, the plant, so on and so forth. But I wanted to bring everybody up to speed on that part of it. I think everybody was taken by surprise, every wastewater treatment plant, everybody involved, of such a substantial increase. There's nowhere else to take it. We're working constantly. The superintendent at the wastewater treatment plant, you know, has got his ears open. I'm putting out feelers to everybody I know. There's just nowhere else to take it at this point in time. We have an agreement with New Bedford. We were able to bring 1 load per week down there and save about $400 per load. But their anaerobic digester is only big enough to take 1 load. So it's going to relieve some pressure a little bit. But, you know, again, I hate to be bearer of bad news, but that's the facts of what's going on with our sludge. So getting the OPM in place and moving on our anaerobic digester is probably ramped up as high as we could possibly have it right now. I don't know what the cost will be next year as far as building a new budget, but so that's where we're at for sludge.
We have the formal term for the dam inspections.
Oh, yes. EAP, emergency action plans for the dams. I built it into the, excuse me, operating budget this year. That project is complete. It was completed by Ty and Bond. We're just waiting for final payment and sign off on that. So that project's complete. So the 3 dams are Leiden Glen, the electric light and power on River Street, and Eunice Williams Drive, the Green River Dam. So we have emergency action plans in place for those and updated for Office of Dam Safety.
We also have the Wiley Russell Dam request for funds continues to be tabled by the council. And without funds to prepare for repairs to the riverbank and the sluiceways, chances are we're going to miss out on the $1.25 million environmental bond bill. The city previously has received the redetermination that the dam is not a significant danger. However, the 10-year period for city action to repair is closing, and to access funds is limited as well. There is a city cost to remove the dams as well. So we're trying to repair the dam with this money and the earmark. There's been no movement by the council. We stand a chance to lose the $1.25 million, and we also have a chance to,
Excuse me, Mayor Martin, we voted that down at the last council meeting.
oh, it was voted down. Well, thank you. So that is dead, as you say. Good. The Eunice William Bridge, the pumping station bridge, has been inspected by the Office of Bridges, DOT?
Yes.
DOT, and has received recertification for continued use as a 20-ton multi-vehicle bridge. Central maintenance. I am relocating the central maintenance department to the DPW yard. The two departments work closely together and share tools and equipment currently. The city has initiated the process for restructuring by bringing the central maintenance to the DPW structure for efficiency and cost savings. Continued discussions with the department leaders and the central or collective bargaining units will take place. There is an advertising in today's paper as required by the charter, and there is a proposal to have members join an existing collective bargaining unit. The DEP, you want to talk about the DEP consent order coming up?
Okay, so as we all know, we were put under a consent order from Mass DEP in March of 2016. Fast forward to when I came back aboard last October, we are nearing the deadline for that 2-year commitment to that administrative consent order to complete the different tasks that needed to be taken care of. So I went down last December, met with Mass DEP, and I think I've been trying to update as frequently as I can. We hadn't received anything back in writing but a verbal that they were going to honor our 2-year extension to accomplish the things that we need to accomplish. We received in writing, October 10th, we received it Thursday, an updated administrative consent order with penalty is how it's worded. But it's 18 pages. It gives us the 2-year extension. There's 18 pages, and I would say over half of that is additional work that we need to accomplish just because of the regulation changes since 2016 and what's up and coming in our new NEPDES permit. As we all know, we're under administrative permit now, just because they haven't gotten to us. So I say with penalty, the penalty's been suspended. And I also want to stress that this is a draft. We're reviewing it in-house. We're going through everything that's been added. We have done some work in a year. We've done quite a bit of work in a year. So we need to address everything in this, go through it, and then we can respond in writing or we can question and get information from that. What I can say is they're stressing real highly. They did like the fact that we entered phase 1 of the SSES, and I can address that if we have time. To find where our I&I issues are coming from and identify exactly where they're coming from and repair them and what the repairs are. They've stressed very highly in here for phase 2. They're basically saying you need to find all your I&I because you continue to violate your permit, your incoming flows. Thus, we know we have a repurpose of Maplebrook funds that's tabled till next month. So again, it's a draft. I'm going to put together a response. I have a couple of questions for clarification on it. The gentleman that issued this is out of the office this week. And then we'll sign 2 copies and send back and see where this draft becomes the official consent order. The $5,750 fine has been suspended momentarily for that. So that's in a nutshell where we're at with the administrative consent order. I need to ask them if our 1 year starts when we sign the new consent order, or did the clock start ticking when I requested it back last December? Everything I'm reading, I think we hit the reset button when this officially gets re-signed. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Address the 300,000.
So the phase 2 of the SSES is our other 5 to 6 sub-basins that were identified of having I&I when we did the flow testing in 2016. So to do the whole city, it was 285 with Wright Pierce, what we're going through for phase 1 right now. The estimate, or we have a cost for $210,000 to finish the city off. So At the end of these reports, it tells us, it gives us a construction, not schedule, but a construction report, what's recommended for repairs, where the repairs need to be done. Thus, we can extrapolate costs from there. I think I've been asked the cost quite a few times, and I'd be afraid to throw any figure out there at this point in time. So it seems to be a moving target on this I&I now that we got the new ACO. I know I expressed pretty adamantly that the repurpose of the money was for repairs in the first 5 subbasins that we were finding. But following the ACOP, which is being overseen by EPA technically, we would like to take 210,000 of that repurpose, and I'd like to move to phase 2 and get the whole city done for the evaluation process. It is worded I&I evaluation and repair, so I just wanted to put that out there. I stated it one way, but we're being directed in other ways from federal and state. So
may I want to follow along and
Okay.
understand.
Councilor Stemple, you,
I've been
please.
kind of flagging down. I just want the acronyms. If you could clarify what ACO, ACOP, and SSE stand for.
okay, administrative consent order with penalty. But they're calling that, but they suspended the penalty, so let's call it an ACO for now, administrative consent order. That's what we put under in 2016. So the SSEA, Sanitary Sewer Evaluation Survey, I think I've spoken about, and I apologize for the acronyms. They started out with smoke testing our 5 subbasins. Now they've narrowed it to segments of the system. Now they go in, dye testing and camera work, and we nail down them segments to this 1,000 feet of pipe, that 300 feet of pipe. They actually nail down what's wrong, where it's coming from, and then the report at the end will tell us what they recommend for repair. I mean, we can figure out what's recommended for repair, but that comes with the package. That's a good thing, because then we can work on costs and come up with construction costs. Yep.
Okay, I want to go to trash or private ways first.
Recycling.
Okay. We want to bring you up to date quickly on the trash recycling situation. The reason we want to give you this broad view, we want to give you all the information you can absorb, hopefully, this evening, because there are a number of areas in which the priorities are kind of established for us.
So back during Ways and Means and Council submitting my budget, talking about my budget, we talked a little bit about trash disposal. And we also talked about how our contract with the MRF in Springfield is expiring June of 2020. And we didn't know where we were going to land on the recycling. They took bids in back in May, and they said they'd be opening and selecting where the materials would be going in September. We didn't hear anything in September. So as of yesterday, the MRF Advisory Board, DEP, all met yesterday, and they came out with the award of the contract. It's a 5-year contract for dual stream. And again, this is an unexpected, we didn't expect this kind of cost. Currently, we receive $22 per ton for recycling. We take it to the MRF, we get $22 per ton. Under this new contract, which starts July 1 of 2020, our cost is $93.50 to dispose. So we go from receiving 22 a ton to paying $93.50 to dispose. Now, the 22 per ton also helps offset our costs. It goes in the revolving fund. We can withdraw up to $125,000, I believe. Liz can verify that. And then I believe the rest goes into the general operating budget. But so it's a heavy swing. I mean, we're talking, we average 1,440 tons a year. We were receiving 32,000, but now we're going to be paying 135,000, and that's before we collect it curbside and we truck it down there. Though there's cost there too. So technically, you take away what we receive, it's going to be a $167,000 shortfall in the budget in FY21.
President Reno, can I ask a question on this particular?
Councilor Mass?
How much are we paying currently for non-recycling solid waste disposal per ton?
$82.50 per ton, and that cost came in after budget was approved. We're going to be under this year.
So am I correct that it costs more to recycle than it does to throw solid waste?
Almost $10 even to the ton, yes.
And am I correct that the materials that were sent for recycling are not actually being recycled because there's no place for them to go? After we dispose of them, they're not going to China to be recycled, is that correct?
Right, I think basically if you read the national news, China stopped taking our recycling.
So can you tell me why we're recycling?
Well, it's mandated through Mass DEP. That's the tricky part about it. So I completely understand your question.
Councilor Alice?
So if people put their recycling in their trash, what is the ramification of that?
Well, technically, it's called waste ban. It's not supposed to go in the trash bag. That's the simple answer. Technically, we're not supposed to pick it up, technically. We do not see inside the bags, obviously, but that's the regulation.
But the difference between dual stream and single stream.
Right.
Councilor Sun?
This is on recycling and everything, but got two questions and one comment. Nash's Mills Bridge. Some people say it's going to be open in December. Am I right, or is it going to be later or earlier?
Okay, so a few weeks back, there seemed to be a mad scramble thinking it was opening October 12th. I saw it all over Facebook. I'm trying to get out there and respond. I met with Mass DOT. So October 12th was what they call substantial completion, okay? The normal person hears substantial completion. The bridge is opening up. The roadway is going to be open up. Yeehaw, here we go, right? So substantial completion, the way it works through Mass DOT, is that substantial completion of the project. Then the contractor and Mass DOT start haggling back and forth on the change orders, what got done, what didn't get done, punch list with the city. I'll go down there and meet with everybody. They'll get a punch list, complete the punch list. Contract gets signed off at District 2 with the contractor. When the job's complete, then it goes for Boston for final sign-off and final payment. There's your month and a half, brings us to December 10th. I hope that helps, or close to 2 months.
Councilor Sun?
I appreciate you tarring Barton Road. Also, your anaerobic digester. How long would it take to put it in? You know, if you got the okay and everything, when could you start and how long would it take?
Well, I think the mayor mentioned we're going to be going to a meeting and there's going to be some dignitaries there. But the short answer is once we get the OPM on board, part of their duties is to work with myself and the mayor to work on the funding, the grants, and also with DEP and EPA. So the short answer is it's as fast as we can get permitting through DEP and EPA. I can't put a timeline to that. If I were to throw a guess out, I would hope that we're building it in a year, inside of a year.
Thank you very much.
That's where I'd like to be.
Councilor Wheeler?
Director Warner, many of the local high schools, I think including Greenfield, send compost in large amounts to Martin's Farm. Is curbside composting something that the city should be considering in light of the new recycling costs?
I think it could be considered, but we have the actual recycling issue in front of us first, the big.
Yeah, this is just long-term, of course, and whether it could alleviate some of the costs, because cardboard, all of the cardboard at the regional high schools goes to Martin's Farm at this time. It does get broken down eventually.
That potentially could be the end product of the digestate for our digester. I think I talked about it a little bit. We would like to ramp that up even further. We take in the proper, if we produce the right digestate, A or B, part of this permitting is going to be composting it at the transfer station. If it's Class A, we can use it in the front yard when we're done with it. Thus comes in, I think, the cardboard, the composting. Maybe that comes into play then. But that's kind of on the end of this project, but it's going to be part of the proposal to DEP.
Councilor Mass?
You may be getting to this. You have it seems like you have a pretty long and comprehensive report, but the DPW project that I'm currently most interested in is the downtown repaving of the replacement of the bricks. And certainly that project has come out very differently than I anticipated it was when we voted it. But I know that it's not going to be redone at this point. So my question is, there appears to be, in the way it was done, a significant amount of spillage outside of the edging, and I'm wondering if you have a plan for remediating that and for beautification of the downtown.
Yes, actually, I talked to the deputy director back when the project started about that in the field superintendent. There is a plan to go back, scrape. I know what you're talking about, the cross trenches, if you will, that aim at the businesses, the cross sections especially. We do have a plan to scrape that and treat it with a chemical to remove that. By the way, we're about 90% done with the project. We've got loaming. As you notice, we're turning quite a bit of the areas into green space. Eventually add some benches. We have a couple of in-house plans we're going through now. So if we don't get all the green space work done this winter, that's okay, but it's important that we finish up the actual stamped concrete, not brick.
Councilor Stemple?
Thank you. Curious, and maybe I missed this somewhere, but I was curious on an update on Wisdom Way. I know that it's in the state's hands, but I was curious as to, that's always been on our top priority, but now that's in the state's hands, I kind of wonder where it's sitting.
Okay, as of today, as a matter of fact, 3 or 4 days ago, we started, the 75% plans have been submitted to District 2. We are programmed for FY 2024 right now on that project, but we weren't programmed at the beginning of this year. We got bumped out of the program. The mayor and I went to numerous meetings. A lot of other communities haven't gotten out ahead of their projects like we have. We paid for the engineering, and that's the key to this. We show Mass DOT that we're committed to the projects, then they commit to the money for the projects. So I'm anticipating that project getting backed up, maybe 2023, maybe 2022, because we're right now on a very fast track to 100% shovel-ready plans. I am hoping we get there before 2024 because I have concerns about how that roadway is being used at this point in time. We have a traffic plan that's part of 75% plans. So when the road closes to one lane during that project, we may have to institute that before that road gets closed and gets worked on. Motorists are just going to the other side of the road naturally going up right now, and it's not safe on that sharp corner. And I'm just putting that out there. It's not the stability of the road, it's the way it's being used that would be very hard to police up, so to speak.
And thank you very much for that question. That's a very important project. That's a savings to the city for $5.5 to $6.5 million. Well, two or more items I want to address, particularly because they're counselor-oriented. One is dealing with the crosswalk on Main Street. The counselor suggested a crosswalk in front of Greenfield's Market across the street. This has been suggested in the past. The immediate, and certainly Marlo can address this directly, it would be a loss of 8 parking spaces, 2 on each side of the sidewalk, a crosswalk on each side of the street. It also would be what's called a mid-block crosswalk, which is not recommended by safety people, highway people, and in crosswalk people, apparently. So you can Google that and get that type of answer. The available parking is behind that store. So if there's that much interest in parking, then there's a parking lot right behind the store, which also has a rear entrance, which looks like a front entrance. So you just have to park behind the store. The other thing that it's difficult to create a perceived safety project for a specific business, because, you know, sometimes Walmart closes down, sometimes big boxes are empty. So we don't know how long different stores are going to be in the same site. So we would consider, we're about 50 to 75 feet away. People usually cross, I travel the street often, people usually cross from where they park. So it doesn't matter where the crosswalk is, whether they park on the church side, they just cross right there. So I think maybe some signs, maybe some interior signs of the store might be helpful. The last topic has to do with private ways. We've received, as I know some of the councilors have, inquiries about certain streets in town and why isn't the town taking care of them? I just want to say that it goes back several years, and actually 2010 is when we created a policy identifying private ways and ways in existence and streets that the city would take care of. We want to address, Marlow has the greatest history on it. It goes back about 20 years.
So, excuse me, specifically, there's been a few roads that we've been approached frequently on lately that I think over the last 19 years, I've dealt with it frequently, and the question is, how come you're not paving our road? Take the road over, pave it for us, so on and so forth. And I completely understand the argument of taxpayers and whatnot on that, but we have policy that goes back to 1968 with the select board, and it's been updated every few years, every 4, 5, 10 years, as far as ways in existence, recognized private ways, unrecognized private ways. So in order to have a private way accepted by the city council, the process generally in the policy would be like a betterment. They'd have to bring it up to code when it comes to drainage, roadbed, have to bring it to city specs, minimum of 20 feet. And then there's two ways we can deal with it from that point forward. We can accept it as a gravel road. Once it's accepted as a city way, I don't want to say town way, city way, then we can, then it's allowable to use Chapter 90 funds to pave that such road. Or we can require that to be completely brought up to code and paved before we accept it. I should say the city council would accept it, but I can send any of the information on that, because I'm pretty sure the question keeps coming up for many of you, maybe on the same roads. I think Barton Heights has come up numerous times, Stetson Drive, but I'll be more than happy to give you more information on that, the exact processes, but that kind of sums it up in a nutshell.
Councilor Dolan? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask to get back to the presentation because I know that Director Warner was interrupted in the middle.
Oh, okay. Okay. Councilor Ellis?
Thank you. Director Warner, when do you foresee having the figures associated with the year-long consent order?
Okay, so this is a draft I have in front of me, and there's 18 pages. We're sorting through. The DPW team met yesterday. We started going through everything. There's some stuff that we have. It's just a matter of updating it, or it's a matter of us providing it to DEP. A lot of this work is done. A lot of it just needs to be put in a different format, or it needs to be consolidated into one document from many documents. But the hard-hitting question is what is it going to cost us to start eliminating our I&I into that plant, the water, fixing the pipes, the structures, and so on and so forth. So that's what this full evaluation is about. They're gonna come back to us, and we can start coming to some end game on costs. Actually, when we met with Wright Pierce last week, we have one small segment in the Wells Street area. They haven't nailed it down yet, but it's producing 53,000 gallons extra a day. Just that one small segment that they got to narrow down where it's coming from. 53,000 gallons a day. That's one spot out of hundreds and hundreds of areas that they've tested. Right now, so far, they've found 65 million gallons of water of I&I in our system that they have to nail down where it's coming from. And they're just getting going. So 64 million gallons, if you think about it from a treatment standpoint, chemicals, pumps running, that's a very small amount of what's happening when we get a heavy rain. So, but it's a big number. So when we get to the other end of this, we know we're jumping from 3.2 million to 10 to 13 million every time we get a hard rain. These evaluations are going to break it down for us so that we know where to go, what we need to do to fix. And my priorities would be, let's get the big areas first. Let's knock that I&I down. We're going to be chasing this with DEP at least through 2025, according to this draft. But they want to see, they're giving us an extension, but they want to see some, they want the evaluation done, and they want to see us eliminate I&I, start eliminating it on our meters down there. That's endgame.
Councilor Wallace?
So my question specifically is, and I know you can't answer it tonight, but I'd like to know for my constituents the cost associated with these serious I&I issues, which we all know we have and we've known that we have. I need to know at some point what our residents and taxpayers can expect and what they can expect to ultimately have to pay for it, especially as we talk about multiple multi-million-dollar projects and having so many things that we're under consent order to fix and doing other things at the same time. We really need to know so that people can at least figure out where their money is going to be spent and how it's going to be spent and how much can we really afford to spend. So I was just hoping that we could get some sort of ballpark on that so that we're being asked to make decisions, going forward, specifically on the ballot. If we make that decision, what's to say that within the year there's not another $10 million liability, $20 million liability on I&I? It would be nice to know for people to be able to make informed decisions. And I know you don't have it now, and I'm not blaming you for not having it. I'm just trying to make that statement that we need to keep our eye on the ball.
Yeah, Councilor, I think the best thing to recognize is that this process is step one. So this is like an early warning system. So we have known for a long time about our I&I. We've been consistently funding it. The City Council has provided the funds almost on an annual basis, and that's been pretty much annually taken care of by the DPW. What we're looking for at this point is to react to an more aggressive EPA and DEP group on the disbursement of contamination into the waterways. So to avoid situations like Pittsfield, which has a $76 million order against them for a new treatment plant, and to avoid another small town in the Berkshires that has a $65 million order, we need to take care of our I&I, reduce the numbers, the gallonage, so that our treatment center meets the needs of the volume that we're taking in. So if we consistently are higher than what our design treatment center is, that's where the order comes in for a new system treatment center. So that's what we're trying to avoid that. Your other reference to the cost, I think what is clear, and that's what I've said several times, I think has been repeated often, is that it's important to stay with your debt in between 8 to 10%. That's the best practice. We have shown time and time again that our plans for, including a report by Moody's, which states the anaerobic digester, the public safety complex, and the library, all are still maintain Greenfield as an A1, top of the line credit rating for their projects. There are some areas that have to be watched. It is expected to watch all the areas. It's the responsibility of the mayor and the council and certainly department heads to watch what they're spending on and anticipate, as Marlo has done in 3 different areas, incredible increases coming down the line. We're addressing one with the sludge. Maybe Councilor Ellis has addressed another with the recycling. But the single stream, dual stream issue has never been brought up in Greenfield, and we're doing it right. We're doing it the right way. We're one of the few communities that have a dual stream. We're one of the few place in Springfield, Murph is a few places that does double stream. So I say that we can manage what we are faced with. No one's going to turn their back. No one's going to not try to find the best avenue for the people of Greenfield, the taxpayers. The idea is to always try to be preemptive, try to take care of these expenses in the future by taking innovative steps now. So that's why we're doing the anaerobic digester. Maybe we shouldn't own a transfer station anymore. Maybe we should put that out to RFP, which I plan to do in another month or so. Not to make any deals, but so that the council and the next mayor will have an idea what that station is going to cost and what someone else might be able to do with it. So those are options for the next council and the next mayor.
Councilor Stemple?
On a different note, I have two questions, unrelated questions. May we also have an update on I tried to find the number of the building on Main Street, but formerly known as the Lucky Nails building. I know that that's out of our hands as well, but I'm curious if we know when DOT will be taking that down.
So DOT is not taking it down. We are. What we were waiting for is a confirmation of their contribution. We have received that about, I think, a month ago. It's a long story. It begins about 2.5 years ago, but the final contribution is a certified check we received from them for $100,000. We still have the CDBG available for $200,000. We have the council's approval for, I think there's $82,000 or $84,000 left. The bid has been given. The award has been given to the bidder, winning bidder, and they're going to start, I think it's by next Wednesday. So we'll be blocking off a section of the storefronts. I think Paul is getting in touch with everybody, all the abutters and the merchants.
Councilor Alice? Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I
Councilor Stemple?
just had one more question, and then I'll mind my manners. I'm just kidding. I don't do that. So you brought up the loss of meeting space at the library in the basement, and so that leads me to ask whether or not we're any closer to building a plan for use of this fine building here for community meeting space.
Yeah. Admittedly, I've struggled with this. We don't have the staff or the money. That's one of you've converted it to a community center. It's opened up. We've been trying to fit people in. We've been trying to fit quasi-governmental, everything but quasi-governmental entities into the meeting rooms. It's pretty much programmed out from 8:30 to 4:30 or 4 o'clock every day, Monday through Friday. But it's available in the evenings, Saturdays, and Sundays. We just don't have anyone to do it. Had a barrage, I would say, of requests yesterday. So for those three, unless I've committed to being here for those three at night. One is a mayoral debate, another one is not in my town, and the other one is information on how to become a citizen. So I think they're all, of course, everything is worthy of being in this building as a community center. We just need someone to be paid to take care of the scheduling, showing up, training the microphones, opening and closing, and being responsible for the asset that it is.
Sounds like a great retirement job for you, Mayor.
Councilor Alice and then Councilor Mass.
The Lucky Nails building, I just want to get, I heard what you said and I was just curious. So what is the contract price that's been awarded?
I think it's 168. Oh, does Liz know? $168,755.
And it was a while ago, so I just want to make sure that I remember. Was it that we cover the first 100,000 or DOT covers the first 100,000? Or is that completely incorrect?
Well, it depends how far back you go. We were never going to cover. We were going to cover the first amount allocated by the council. If you go back right to the early conversation, the DOT was going to cover the rest of it up to $500,000.
Okay.
So we never got that in writing. We tried for a year and a half. Finally, the communicant we were with retired, and that we had to start all over again in different places. In any event, we have 100,000, and help with the. We have to patrol the Amtrak and the cargo train. So we have to have a detail, and they're going to provide a detail.
So just so that I'm clear, the state DOT gave us $100,000 towards the total cost of 162. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when you mentioned 200,000 as CDBG, what was that in regards to? It's not in regards to this.
Yeah, well, that came during the same time we were in discussion, and the allowable funds from there is for site acquisition and to create a pedestrian bridge to go from Main Street to the back parking lot, and to work on that Side Hill area. So if you recall, you were the one that said that we couldn't use the CDBG money for site acquisition. So we had to wait a year and a half until the tax title took hold. And then, of course, we got the property free of charge, except for legal fees. So now we own the property, so we don't have to use that money for site acquisition. So the $200,000 is for what's the remnants of what's happening after the demolition.
Councilor Alice, and then Councilor Mass.
Thank you. Just thank you for that explanation. Just to be clear, though, the council voted as a body not to use any money for site acquisition. It wasn't me personally. So thank you.
Councilor Mass.
One of the very first things you said was that central maintenance was moving to DPW. That suggests to me that there's now going to be space at Sanderson Street. Is there, I'm trying to understand what the plan would be for the space that's being vacated by central maintenance. Are you going to be moving another department that's currently leasing space? Are you going to be expanding the existing departments that are there? Are you possibly going to reopen a teen center there, which is why we got the building to begin with? What is the plan for the vacated space?
Well, it's not for a teen center. So it's used as, the recreation department uses part of the building for their offices and for the children's camp and for the after-school programs. The space that will become available is a small office area and a tool room. If you recall, when there was a teen center, the tool room was the pool room, and the small office area is facing the building, the right front, which has a separate entrance. So that will become, those two areas will become vacant. We have no lease space in Greenfield that the town is using except for GSET and the Veterans District Center. The Veterans District Center serves all of the towns in Franklin County, plus Plainfield and in Hampshire County. So that will stay as an independent location on Main Street. It's a great location. It's been extremely successful. So the other option might be GSET.
Councilor Alice, I just wanted to give you some additional information on the question you had for costs up and coming. If it's helpful, Wright Pierce is going to be done with their phase 1 early to mid-December, weather permitting. And then they are supposed to submit a complete report to me at the very latest March 1st. So at that point in time, we can come up with some costs, at least in the phase 1, the first 5 sub-basins. I would love to tell you right now exactly what it's going to be, because I'd like the answer more than anybody, I think. So, but I thought you might appreciate that extra information.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Director Marlowe. I'm sorry, Warren, you know.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now we're going to start our public comment portion. Folks have 3 minutes. Linda Smith.
Thank you. I had joined the council on a couple of meetings prior to this talking about the property tax work-off abatement program, and we thought there was going to be a vote tonight, and we were very eager to make sure everyone understood our position. I am a volunteer here at the Senior Center. I do participate in the senior tax work-off, but before you voted, I wanted to make sure that I wanted to remind you that because the ordinance right now states that no volunteers who currently volunteer at the senior center would be eligible to use these hours for senior tax work-off, because the program is managed by a senior center staff employee. That would not be fair. I would be very upset not to be eligible. I've spent many hours here, 12 months out of the year. If the other town departments don't need or want the seniors to work there, which they're not being refused, they just don't seem to request enough of us to be able to provide them with additional help. I think it's communication, because they may not understand that the program, how it works and who pays for it. It was under my impression that some people found out that it is not the individual departments that pay for that. It's a separate kitty, it's a separate payout, and I think we need to make sure people understand that. I would not want you to take that opportunity away from me as someone who does do the volunteering here. I do it 12 months out of the year, whether or not it's under the senior tax work-off, and I will continue to do so. But I'm a taxpayer who has worked full-time for over 45 years prior to my retirement. I've been a widow for 7 years, and my real estate tax bill is over $4,800. I paid one payment today. It's very difficult to pay this bill without the senior tax work-off, and I would ask you, please do not take it away from me. Allow me to volunteer, work here, help out where I can, and there in turn helps me, because I know the tax bills are not going to go down. I think that is all that I have to say. Oh, I know, one other thing. We're only talking less than 20 people that's involved with this program. Right now, I believe there's 17 people that the senior center has under that program. It's a small percentage, but it's very important to all of the people that participate in doing it, and we really would not want to lose out on doing that. So don't penalize us because the senior center staff does that type of work, and I don't think anybody else would want to take it on. She does a fabulous job, and thank goodness we have somebody like that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Peg Saulnier. Could you please state your address too?
Peg Saulnier, 7 Keegan Lane. I've been at 1 or 2 previous council meetings, and I promise I will stop talking. I didn't at the last one. I understand that it was put on, the Council on Aging, the tax write-off program was put on the agenda by error tonight. And I understand also that because it is on the agenda, you could vote for it tonight, and that's why we are here, to make sure that you guys keep your promise to us that you are going to request that it be tabled until you come to an agreement with the information that Director Smith gave you last week. We enlightened the council members that were there. We hope we did anyway, and we'll continue to do that for you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And no department in this town or city should be penalized because somebody in that department is handling administrative duties correctly. If the mayor's office did it, then nobody could work for the mayor's office. It doesn't sound correct. It sounds like you're cutting your nose off to spite yourselves. And we enjoy working any place. I have also heard that there was an opening in another department. I know the person. I contacted her, asked her to call Avery, and I would love to do something for that department too. But we want to be wanted. We don't want to be just sent there and shoved down somebody's throat. We've worked hard for our name and our reputations, and we all have skills. We have unique skills. They may be old, but they're unique, and they're very important. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Ellen Thompson?
Ellen Thompson, 54 High Street, Greenfield, Mass. And here I am again. We don't have the money to staff here, but we'll have plenty for a new expensive library. You folks swore an oath to obey the Constitution after you were elected to your seats. Frankly, I don't care what your personal beliefs are, how you choose to live. That's what makes this country so great. However, when your personal beliefs become your operating principles in violation of your oaths of office, we have a big problem. Ours is not a socialist country, nor is our state a socialist state, nor is our town a socialist town. If you recall from our Constitution that you took an oath to obey, we have a republic, thus a Republican form of government. What you're doing is no less than an attempt to overthrow our rightful government. In a republic, the citizens are protected from invasion. Their unalienable rights are protected, as enumerated in the Bill of Rights, also known as the Bill of Prohibitions, where public servants are to keep their dirty hands off the Greenfield citizens' unalienable rights. You don't rule this town, you're public servants.
Thank you. Councilor Wheeler, could you open up the public hearing?
Thank you, Madam President. Public hearing. In accordance with Home Rule Charter, the Greenfield City Council will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 16, 2019, at 7 p.m. at John Zahn Community Center, 35 Pleasant Street, to receive public input on the following. $1,300 be appropriated from the Stabilization Fund to fund retroactive wage provisions of a new contract with the Greenfield Superior Officers Association, Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 50, Supervisors Police Union. The City Council may consider the same on Wednesday, October 16, 2019, at 7 p.m. at John Zahn Community Center, 35 Pleasant Street. Materials can be obtained from the City Clerk's Office, 14 Court Square, from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, or by phone 413-772-1555, extension 6163. Karen Reno, Greenfield City Council President. City Council, second reading, October 16, 2019. $1,300 be appropriated from the Stabilization Fund to fund retroactive wage provisions of a new contract with the Greenfield Superior Officers Association, Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 50, Supervisors Police Union.
I'm opening up the public hearing now on just this particular item at 8:30. And there's the buzzer. I don't think anybody signed up to speak on this particular order. Do we have a motion to suspend the rules of procedure? All in favor? Opposed? Raise your hands. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are those yes or no? These are no's. Let's do it again. Okay. Just I want to make sure we have this right because I think the majority are no. Do we have a motion to suspend the rules of procedure? Yes. We have a second. Everyone who wants to suspend the rules of procedure, raise your hand. Who wants to? Raise them high, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Abstain. Okay, we are suspending the rules of procedure. The next motion, again, I'm going to have raised hands because I think it's going to be close. And remember, you don't all have to vote for anything. And it's going to be a roll call vote, actually, to make it really clear. So do we have a motion to go into executive session? And could somebody please read the entire motion? Councilor Stemple, could you read it?
I'm silly. The City Council move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to enter into executive session for reason number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to pending and imminently threatened litigation where an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the public body. The following is a summary listing of the items to be discussed. Litigation involving J. Arcelana's estate, that's a new word to me. Litigation involving S. Kinney litigation involving A. Norman, litigation involving D. Kelly, litigation involving K. Friedman, litigation involving E. Braccia, litigation involving National Prescription Opioid litigation involving International Container Company, litigation involving Comcast Cable, litigation involving zoning appeal -109 Mohawk Trail, litigation involving zoning appeal -French King Highway.
Is there a second? Okay, this is a non-debatable motion, so we're just going to do a roll call vote. So this is to go, if you want to go into executive session, vote yes. If you do not want to go into executive session, which you do not have to do, vote no.
Counselor Sun? Yes. Counselor Burson? Yes. Counselor Alice? Yes. Counselor Dolan?
Yes.
Counselor Gilmore? Yes. Counselor Wheeler?
No.
Counselor Mayo?
Yes.
Counselor Hirschfeld?
Yes.
Counselor Mass?
No.
Vice President wish to vote?
No.
Vice President Ricketts? Yes. Counselor Stemple?
No.
Okay, so for everybody watching and all of you that are here, we have just voted to go into executive session, so that means the camera goes off. You can stay here. We're going to go into another room. We will resume. I can't tell you when. Councilor Wheeler, page 6.
Ordered that the sum of $1,300 be appropriated from the stabilization fund to fund retroactive wage provisions of a new contract with the Greenfield Superior Officers Association Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 50 Supervisors Police Union.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Report from committee.
This was a positive recommendation. If I can find my notes, I can tell you more specifically. It was a split positive. Sorry, it was 4-1 split positive recommendation.
Okay. Does anybody else want to speak on this? Councilor Stemple?
Is this contract stabilization? Just stabilization? I was gonna say. Okay, that was just my question.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? 1 abstention. Motion carries. Councilor Wheeler.
Ordered that to amend the FY20 sewer enterprise by reducing the appropriated amount by $187,826. Revised appropriation amount is $2,393,433, and that $333,112 be included in appropriation from the general fund for sewer indirect costs and be allocated to the sewer enterprise fund for funding, and that $2,193,433 be raised from sewer receipts for the fiscal year starting July 1, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020.
there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Report from committee.
This was a unanimous positive recommendation. If you recall, at our last meeting, we passed something similar for the Water Enterprise Fund. This is the sewer portion.
Very good. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Councilor Wheeler.
Move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council take from the table order number FY 20-009, the sum of $460,000 be appropriated for the replacement of the heating system in Green River schools. And to meet said appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is hereby authorized to borrow said sum of $460,000 pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, or any other enabling statute. And the mayor is hereby authorized to apply for, contract for, accept, and expend any federal and/or state grants or bond premiums available for this project to be used to reduce the appropriation. And further, the mayor is authorized to take any action necessary to carry out the intent and purpose of these projects, which was tabled at the July 17th, 2019 City Council meeting.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, this is non-debatable. It's to take off the table. All in favor?
No.
Oh, wait a second. Okay, raise your hands if you want to take this off the table. There's only 2 votes to take this off the table. Raise your hands if you don't want to take it off the table. Okay. Motion fails. I'm sorry, any abstentions? No. Okay. Councilor Gilmore.
Let's see. Yep, I know, I'm just getting there. The City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council, pursuant to Charter Section 2-10, accept the following appointments by the mayor to the following: Linda McInerney, Greenfield Cultural District, expire once project completed. Rabbi Andrea Koenig-Keener, Local Cultural Council, expires December 31st, 2021. Hannah Reutschaffen, Local Cultural Council, expires December 31st, 2021. Emily Deutschman, Local Cultural Council, expires December 31st, 2021.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Report from committee.
Yes, so this was unanimous positive with one amendment, and that was that Director Smith was going to find the expiration date for this project, which he promised to me, and I don't see him in the room right now. There was the term is supposed to expire once the project is completed, and Councilor Mass pointed out that we normally have a date associated with that, even if it's for a specific project, because in theory we wouldn't want the project to just continue and keep being in perpetuity, so that, not that anyone would want, wouldn't want to get stuck with Linda McInerney, but just to keep things, yes. So Director Smith promised us a date when the project was going to expire that Linda McInerney is going to be working on.
Director Smith, do you have a date when the project's going to expire?
Yeah, they're 5-year terms, so the first 5-year term ends on 2021. Then they will actually reapply again and do another 5-year term.
Is that December like the others?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And that's upon recommendation of the mayor?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Other than that, it was unanimous positive.
Okay. Councilor Hirschfeld has informed me that he wants to excuse himself from this vote.
That's correct.
Okay, for a conflict of interest. Recuse, I'm sorry, recuse. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. The city election warrant, Councilor Alice.
Move that it be ordered the Greenfield City Council hereby approves the attached city general elections warrant for November 5th, 2019, and further authorizes the city council president to sign said warrant on behalf of the city council. City general election warrant, City of Greenfield, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Franklin, SS, to enter of the constables of the City of Greenfield, County of Franklin, greetings in the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of said city who are qualified to vote in elections to meet at the polling places designated for the several precincts in said city as follows. Precinct 1 through 9, Greenfield High School Gymnasium, 21 Bar Avenue, on Tuesday, the 5th day of November, 2019, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the following purpose: to choose by ballot the following city office: 1 mayor, 4-year term; 2 city councilors at large, 4-year term; 1 city councilor, Precinct 1, 4-year term; 1 city councilor, Precinct 2, 4-year term; 1 city councilor, Precinct 3, 4-year term; 1 city councilor, Precinct 4, 4-year term; 1 city councilor, Precinct 9, 2-year term; 3 school committee members, 4-year term; 1 school committee member, 2-year term; 1 assessor, 4-year term; 3 trustees of A.K. Warner Fund, 2-year term; 1 elector under will of Oliver Smith, 2-year term; 3 trustees of Jenny Bascom Education Fund, 2-year term. Binding ballot question 1, quote, shall the following measure, which was proposed to be rescinded by voters in a citizen referendum petition, take effect, end quote. Summary: upon recommendation of the mayor that the sum of $19,541,296 be appropriated for the construction of a new public library, and to meet said appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is hereby authorized to borrow said sum of $19,541,296 pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7, Subsection 3, or any other enabling statute, and the mayor is hereby authorized to apply for, contract for, accept, and expend any federal and/or state grants available for the project to be used to reduce the within appropriation, and further, the mayor is authorized to take any action necessary to carry out the intent and purpose of the projects. A yes vote would uphold the city council vote above and allow funding for a new public library. A no vote would rescind the city council vote, not allow funding for a new public library. Yes, no. Binding ballot question number 2, quote, shall the following measure, which was proposed to be rescinded by voters in a citizen referendum petition, take effect, end quote. Summary: that the Greenfield City Council amends the Code of the City of Greenfield by adding Chapter 353, establish the City of Greenfield as a safe city ordinance as summarized below, and further amends the table of contents and index of the contents of the code, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering in the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the Code of the City of Greenfield. The Safe City Ordinance would be effective immediately upon passage. Its purpose is to affirm that Greenfield is a welcoming city which embraces everyone, including but not limited to the immigrant, the refugee, the asylum seeker, and anyone of good faith and goodwill who wishes to be a member of our community. While the ordinance would not prohibit or restrain any city official from sending to or receiving from any local, state, or federal agency information regarding citizenship or immigration status consistent with 8 U.S.C. Section 1373, the ordinance would establish that a city official shall not inquire as to an individual's immigration status unless required by federal, state law. B, a city official shall not target with legal action or discriminate against a medical, educational, or faith institution in their mission of providing refuge to immigrants and their families. C, a city official shall not initiate an investigation or take law enforcement action, including regulatory action, on the basis of actual or perceived immigration status. D, notwithstanding sections 2A and 2C above, a person's immigration status shall not prohibit or inhibit the city or any city official's participation in any government operation or program that confers an immigration benefit or temporarily or permanently protects non-citizens from removal as provided through programs such as the U visa, the T visa, and the Federal Violence Against Women Act. E, when an individual is eligible for release from custody, a city official shall not detain nor delay the release of an individual on the basis of a civil immigration detainer request or an ICE administrative warrant for the individual. F, a city official shall honor judicial warrants but shall not respond to an ICE request for notification about the incarceration status or pending release of a person in custody, and shall not otherwise communicate with ICE about a person who is in its custody, including providing information about the person's release from custody, home address, work address, or phone number. G, to the extent permissible by law, a city official shall not perform the functions of an immigration officer, whether pursuant to 8 U.S.C. Section 1357G or any other law, regulation, or policy, whether formal or informal. A yes vote would uphold the city council vote above and allow the Safe City Ordinance to go into effect. A no vote would rescind the city council vote and not allow the Safe City Ordinance to go into effect. Yes or no? Given under our hands this 16th day of October 2019, signed, you, Madam President, Karen Reno, City Council President, a true copy attest, constable's signature and date of posting. The end.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you, Councilor Ellis. Councilor Gilmore. Page 63.
This, I can do it, but this one wasn't my committee.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Councilor Hirschfeld, I'm really sorry.
City Council move that be ordered that the Greenfield City Council approves the attached resolution titled, "A Resolution Request Compensation from CVS Health Corporation for the said corporation's role in the opioid addiction crisis in the city of Greenfield."
Is there a second? Okay, motion's been made and seconded. What was the report from committee?
We had a positive recommendation.
Okay. Any other discussion? Councilor Burson.
A suggested addition in terms of the language in connection with this, which basically maybe some of you have in this document, which is dated Friday, October 11th, and by adding the paragraph, "in the event that the city of Greenfield receives payment as a result of any claim, settlement, award, and/or judgment against CVS, said payment shall be set off against any voluntary payment as provided herein." The thinking presented is that if CVS, for some reason, decided to make a voluntary payment, that if the litigation involving CVS as well as some of the other purveyors of these drugs were found liable, they would be given credit against any future award.
Councilor Pearson, do you just want to make that amendment to the motion?
Yes, I would move that it constitute an amendment to the motion.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, so we're speaking about the amendment to the motion, not the motion as a whole, and I'll read it again. So this would be added: in the event that the city of Greenfield receives payment as a result of any claim, settlement, award, and/or judgment against CVS, said payment shall be set off against any voluntary payment as provided herein. Is there any discussion on the amendment to the motion? Councilor Dolan?
I'm not entirely opposed to this. The reason I didn't take it as a friendly amendment was I'm just not sure about the legality of this kind of thing. It's kind of above my pay grade to give a credit on a future lawsuit. It's just not an area of expertise of mine. I don't believe that CVS or anyone involved in the opioid supply chain will ever adequately compensate the people of Franklin County. I don't believe that that's possible given the scale of this epidemic. So I'm not inclined to make it sound like they will have paid off a debt, because I don't believe that any amount of money would do that.
Councilor Mass?
Clarify for my colleagues, this is a resolution, and the amendment has no further effect than saying that this is what the council would like to have happen, but it is in no way binding on anyone.
Any other discussion? Okay, so this is for the amendment to the motion only. All in favor? Opposed? Raise your hands, please. Opposed to the amendment? Yeah, opposed. Opposed to the amendment. Okay, so the amendment passes. Abstain? One abstention. Okay, so now we're back to the motion as a whole. And the report from committee was positive, unanimous. Any other discussion? Councilor Wheeler and then Mass.
I support this resolution in spirit. I think I told the recorder that I supported this resolution. Upon further reflection and considering that CVS is already in litigation with the city as, I don't think I can support this. I don't see the efficacy at this time, so I'll be voting no.
Councilor Mass.
Well, I think I understand the spirit that this was offered in. I'll be honest, I think this is an exercise in self-flagellation and virtue signaling. I think that it is completely meaningless. I think CVS does not care what we say here as far as this goes. I also think it's completely inappropriate that we're passing this resolution without inviting CVS, particularly the local CVS, in to talk to the council. I believe that CVS is a good corporate citizen. They're one of the only 24-hour pharmacies in the county. The pharmacists at CVS are outstanding professionals who take care of many, many people in a whole wide variety of ways, many of which have nothing to do with the opiate situation. I also think this is something like blaming the grocery store for an E. coli outbreak that takes place at the farm. I think it's just absolutely outrageous that we're pointing fingers and we're trying to blame everyone. I get this is a big problem, and none of this does anything to solve our problem. I would rather see us invest resources into social services within the community, even the staff members through the Board of Health, to do outreach, to connect people to services, and actually try to do something about the opioid epidemic rather than virtue signal. So I'll be opposed.
Councilor Dolan and Councilor Alice and Councilor Sund.
I'm the first to admit that this is a symbolic, as with all resolutions, it's symbolic. I think it amounts to a strongly worded letter to CVS. I'm sure that we've all written strongly worded letters, and I do believe that there are times when the damage to the community is significant enough that that's a step that's worth taking. This isn't going to solve the opioid crisis. I also think without significant funding from some source, the proposals that Councilor Mass made will also not solve the opioid crisis. I think it's incumbent upon us to identify all of the actors that participated in the supply chain that pumped opioids into our community and hold them all accountable, and this is one step. I happen to know off the top of my head a handful of prescribers who were doing so irresponsibly, and if I know that as a regular citizen, certainly a corporation with access to the prescription, most of the prescription records for the entire county would have been able to identify those prescribers. There's enough suspicion about CVS's role in this that they are in litigation currently. I'm hoping that this letter will support that legislation and serve as a strongly worded letter. I would also note that this was in the newspaper. We have received no comments from CVS. No one has reached out to me. I think to some extent it's incumbent upon them to contact the council or the town government with some kind of statement.
Thank you. Councilor Alice?
Yeah, I believe that this resolution is, the resolution itself is not flawed. Anyone can submit a resolution. I just don't see how this resolution is going to have any bearing on solving the opioid problem that we and every other community suffers from. What it will do, I believe, is withhold medications from some people who do need it. And opioids can and do also save lives. Case in point, my daughter got her opioids from CVS because they were open 24 hours. When she came home from the NICU, that's where we got her medication. If they were to get the message by this resolution that they should question certain or every instance where an opioid is prescribed, which I think is the message that this sends, that would be detrimental to people who actually need it. And therefore, I won't be supporting it. I appreciate that this was a way that my colleague felt it was something that could be done to help the situation. I just don't believe that it will do anything to actually solve the problem. Thank you.
Councilor Sun, Councilor Stemple, Councilor Burson, Vice President Ricketts.
The opioid, you can try to solve it by suing CVS and everything, but it's a person that's taking them. If it's an adult, they got to take some responsibility themselves and not just try to keep taking them. Because when I was in service, if I had kept taking the drugs they gave me, I wouldn't be sitting here now if I got hooked on them. There's a good point, like Brickett brought forward about his daughter. And he had enough responsibility to do what the doctor said and what needed to be done. But people as adults that know when they're taking too much and don't stop, then it's their responsibility and not CVS's.
Councilor Stemple?
Wow. Okay. I sit here on the council, and this isn't a story I tell lightly, but I've actually been overdosed on opioids before, and that was at the hands of a doctor. I was in a terrible car accident at 17 years old, and this was back in the day when they gave you morphine through a drip. And they changed my dosage, but they didn't change the timer on the drip. So I was coded out and given what I assume is Narcan. My narrative until, I would say, the last few years when Narcan became a thing, the narrative that I was told was something that reverses the side effects, almost like an EpiPen. But in fact, it was nasal Narcan. I remember coming back out of that experience, and it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. To this day, I have short-term memory loss. So I empathize with the families and the victims of the opioid crises, because we do have people suffering at the hands of pharmacists, at the hands of doctors, like myself, who was overdosed at the hands of a medical professional. And I'm not here to grandstand, so I won't name the hospital, but it was a local hospital. We do have a responsibility to question pharmaceutical companies. We do have a responsibility to question doctors. My story is not stupid, ma'am. How dare you?
Ma'am, you're not, this, no, both of them are not out of order. We have a counselor who's speaking. We gave the audience time to speak. You don't denigrate a counselor no matter what her opinion, and we don't denigrate you when you come up. If
Anyway,
you
back
have to maintain order in this, or else I'm going to ask you to leave. We enjoy you being here, and that's why we postponed the executive session, so let's just keep it civil.
And so being vulnerable here today, sharing my story, that was my moment that I learned that we need to question pharmaceutical companies, that we need to question doctors, need to advocate for ourselves. And watching this crisis spiral out of control, I was 17 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. or clicking. I felt safe. I felt in control of that because there was somebody who knew more than me in a white coat telling me that they were taking care of me. And so I agree that we need to be questioning. And there's plenty of pharmaceutical companies who are being prosecuted right now because they need to do a better job of questioning. And I don't think that this resolution will cause folks from not receiving the care that they receive, but it'll be making sure that they're not receiving care that's outside of the parameters of the care that they need, like what happened to myself due to human error. Anyway, sharing my personal story, I just wanted to share, and it's actually a process for me through this opioid crisis to share this story and to share that I'm an ally. And that outburst made me lose my train of thought. But I just think we need to kind of be careful with what we're saying here because we do not know each other's experience, and we can't blame anybody really except for those who claim to know what they're doing, and those who we trust to do it. We're all in this together.
Councilor Burson?
It's important that every community take a stand against evil. And this is an evil. This is culpability by the major drug manufacturers and dispensers in this country who provided these opioids knowing that they were addictive. It is not a question of whether or not a particular individual or a doctor prescribed a drug. In some cases, some of the doctors didn't even know how addictive these drugs were. And billions of dollars of profit were made by companies who did this. And in terms of the local CVS, when you look at the database compiled by the Washington Post in connection with the entire country, they tracked each and every single tablet that every company made, manufactured, and distributed. And when you see the number of prescriptions that came out of CVS in view of the entire population, it almost registered that every one of us was getting about 340 tablets, which leaves me to pause about this. And it isn't just the city of Greenfield saying this. It's a cumulative effect. It's in the aggregate. It's when we and the next town, the next city, the next state come up and say, this is wrong, that our voices be heard. And when we are silent about it, we acquiesce in the result. I have been a participant in the GBS litigation, which was the same kind of situation, a defective vaccine that paralyzed people. And that doesn't even include what happened in connection with the smoking litigation, which provided, in the last analysis, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to fight tobacco companies and to fight smoking. So this is very, very important. Do I think that the city of Greenfield is going to cause CVS to change its mind? No. But I think the city of Greenfield and maybe another town and another town and a town in West Virginia and a town in Iowa and a town in Vermont who have been really punished and victimized by this will come together and say, this is a groundswell. We will not tolerate this kind of culpability. And we're saying here today that we recognize what you've done, and you know what? We're not going to take it anymore. Now, do we have the power to impose our will? No, but we have the power to add our voice. And the fact that we record this and say this will contribute at least to justice in many, many ways. So I'm going to support this resolution.
Vice President Ricketts? And then we went to Councilor Gilmore.
Move that we call the question.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay. All in favor of the motion, raise your hands. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Councilor Stemple. I'm sorry, Councilor Hirschfeld. Really sorry.
Thank you.
Oh, I keep doing that. Should have been mine.
The City Council moved the order to approve the resolution to accept the Mass Development Site Readiness Grant for the expansion of the I-91 Industrial Park.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Report from committee.
Positive recommendation.
Okay. Councilor Mass.
I'd just like to point out, as opposed to the previous resolution, this is a resolution that actually does something. It's targeted at an audience that not only wants but requires to hear from us.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Councilor Gilmore.
So this was actually tabled at our committee, and I know that we had put it on the agenda at committee chairs, but we decided at the committee that we really needed to take some extra time and add some feedback from our constituents and also from some of the department heads that Director Smith very graciously gathered for us. So they put that effort into it, and we're going to make sure that when we turn this back to the City Council, that it's in its final draft format.
Okay. Could we just make the motion and then
Sure.
we'll table? I mean, if that's what the council, if that's the will of the council.
Got it.
Telling people what to do.
The City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amends the Code of the City of Greenfield by adding Chapter 345 Property Tax Work-Off Abatement Ordinance as attached hereto, and further amends the Table of Contents Index of Contents of the Code, and further that non-substantial changes to the numbering of the ordinance be printed in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the Code of the City of Greenfield.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Councilor Mass.
Move to refer to committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion's referred to committee. Councilor Stemple. Ray.
Thank you, ladies.
The City Council moved that it be ordered that the City Council of Greenfield hereby initiates the following zone change in accordance with MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5. Amend the zoning ordinance schedule of uses, Chapter 200, as follows. 200-46, Health Service District. Add the existing use category municipal or commercial parking lot or garage as a use allowed by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals within the H District. Currently, this use is not allowed in the H District. 200-4.7 Central Commercial District. Add a new use makerspace use as a use allowed by right within the CC District. Add a use Add a new use, craft workshop and light assembly with retail component as a use allowed by right within the CC district. Add a new use, automated vending kiosk as a use listed within existing number 16 under uses allowed by right, and add the existing use category, retail sales incidental to a permitted use or use allowed by special permit as a use allowed by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Currently, this use is not allowed within the CC district. 200-4.8, limited commercial district. 200-4.9, general commercial district. Add a new use, makerspace as a use allowed by right within the LC and GC districts. Add a new use, craft workshop and light assembly with retail component as a use allowed by right within the LC and GC districts. Add a new use, automated vending kiosks as a use listed within existing number 22 under uses allowed by right in section 200-4.8, limited commercial. Add a new use, automated vending kiosk as a use listed within existing number 23 under uses allowed by right in section 200-4.9, general commercial. And add the existing use category, mixed residential business uses as a use allowed by right within both the LC and GC districts. Currently, this use is only allowed by special permit in these districts. Add the existing use category, sale, leasing, repair, or servicing of new and used motor vehicles with a Class 1 motor vehicles license issued by the town of Greenfield as a use allowed by special permit within both the LC and GC districts. Currently, this use is only allowed by special permit within the CC district. Amend the existing use category, self-storage, from a use allowed by right within the LC district to a use allowed by special permit. Add the existing use category, retail sales incidental to a permitted use or use allowed by a special permit as a use allowed by right within the LC and GC districts. Currently, this use is not allowed within the LC and GC districts. (200-4.10) Office District. Add a new use, makerspace as a use allowed by right within the O District. Add a new use, craft workshop and light assembly with retail component as a use allowed by right within the O District. Add the existing use category, mixed residential business uses, as a use allowed by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals within the O District. Currently, this use is not allowed within the O District. And add the existing use category, retail sales incidental to a permitted use or use allowed by special permit as a use allowed by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Currently, this use is not allowed within the O District. 200-4.11, General Industry District. 200-4.12, Planned Industry District. Add the existing use category, greenhouse, nursery, or farm stand where 50% or more of the products for sale have been produced on the premises as a use allowed by right within the PI district to be consistent with MGL Chapter 40A, Section 3. Excuse me. Add the existing use category, bus or railroad passenger terminal or taxi dispatch as a use allowed by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals within the GI district. Currently, it is not allowed within the GI district. Add the existing use category, sale of leasing of motor vehicles, boats, farm implements, campers, or other vehicles or heavy equipment as a use allowed by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals within the GI district. Currently, this use is not allowed within the GI district. Add the existing use category, sale, leasing, repair, or servicing of new or used motor vehicles with a Class 1 motor vehicle license issued by the town of Greenfield as a use allowed by the special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals within the GI district. Currently, this use is not allowed within the GI district. Add the existing use category, service and repair shops for appliances, small equipment, business and consumer products as a use allowed by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals within the GI district. Currently, this use is not allowed within the GI district. Add a new use, makerspace, as a use allowed by right within the GI and PI districts. Add a new use, craft workshop and light assembly with retail component as a use allowed by right within the GI and PI districts. Add a new use, automated vending kiosks as a use listed within existing number 17 under uses allowed by right within the GI district. Add a new use, automated vending kiosks as a use listed within existing number 15 under uses allowed by right within the PI district. Add the existing use category, mixed residential business uses as a use allowed by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals within the GI district. Currently, this use is not allowed within the GI district. Remove the existing use category, hotel, motel, or inn as a use allowed by special permit within the GI district. Remove the existing use category conference center as a use allowed by special permit within the GI district. Add the existing use category multifamily dwelling in accordance with section 200-72 as a use allowed by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals within the GI district. Currently, this use is not allowed within the GI district. Just want to make a note there. Add the existing use categories accessory dwelling unit within, accessory dwelling unit attached, and accessory dwelling unit detached as uses allowed by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals within the GI district. Currently, these uses are not allowed within the GI district. Add the existing use category retail establishment as a use allowed by right within the GI district. Currently, this use is not allowed within the GI district. And add the existing use category restaurant, bar, or lounge for serving food or drinks primarily within the building as a use allowed by right within the GI district. Currently, this use is not allowed within the GI district. Article 2, definitions, section 200-21, terms and words. Craft workshop, and light assembly with related retail, a shop that sells goods made by hand, such as decorative objects, clothing, and household tools, to include the materials and tools used for making such goods. Light industry and manufacturing, a section of an economy's secondary industry characterized by less capital-intensive and more labor-intensive operations for the production of small goods. Products made by an economy's light industry tend to be targeted toward end consumers rather than other businesses. Makerspace, an enterprise that provides technology, equipment, and educational opportunities to the public. They're typically funded by membership fees or through affiliations with external organizations such as universities, for-profit companies, nonprofit organizations, and municipalities, and allow members to design, prototype, and manufacture items using tools that would otherwise be inaccessible or unaffordable. Automated vending kiosk, an automated machine that provides such items as snacks, beverages, cigarettes, lottery tickets, and other goods to consumers after money, a credit card, or specially designed card is inserted into the machine. Amend the existing definitions of retail business so that it includes internet retail sales. Retail, crossing out the word business, establishment. Premises used for retail sale of goods for personal or business use to include internet retail sales, and also premises used for personal business or household services. Does not include retail businesses elsewhere defined or permanent or ongoing tag, yard, garage, or barn sales. And further amends the table of contents and index of the code. And further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the city of Greenfield.
Is there a second? Okay, this is just to initiate. All in favor? Aye. Is there any discussion to initiate? Councilor Mass?
On the whole, I think this is largely good, and I had asked this to be tabled to this week so we had an opportunity to review and discuss. If we make initiation starts a clock. So if we're going to make any changes, we need to make them now, or we have to start the public hearing process again. I would say that there are, on the whole, if this was submitted as it is, I would vote for it, right? I would vote for it to initiate it. I would vote for it to pass. I anticipate that. There are two minor things that I would like to engage my colleagues on. One is a very minor change, and that is under 200-4.1 General Industrial District. There's a removal of existing use category hotel, motel, or inn, and from the GI district. This is on the bottom of page 72. Yes, that's correct. 4.11. This is at the bottom of page 72. This is the 5th bullet point up. I have, first of all, these are the only two removal provisions right here in the entire thing. This is primarily an exercise in downzoning. However, I would prefer to leave in, the word or in, out. I'd prefer to strike that, and in is something similar to a bed and breakfast, and while that GI zone does not necessarily lend itself to a hotel or a motel, there's very unlikelihood that anyone would ever want to put one of those there. I think it is likely, particularly on Montague City Road, that someone might want to put an inn. And so, as a first measure, I'd move to amend by striking the word "or in."
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so an amendment has been made to strike the word "or in" on the fifth point above on 4-11. Councilor Wheeler?
This amendment is based on the assumption that once the clock is started on this process, that no changes can be made. However, the Mass General Law, I believe, directs that no substantive changes can be made, and I fail to see how changing 2 words out of God knows how many, Councilor Stemple maybe knows, makes a difference one way or another.
Councilor Dolan?
I recall that we referred this to committee last time. I'm just curious which committee. I'm disappointed it didn't come to EDC.
I thought it did go to EDC. Oh, you know what? We are initiating it first, and then where it's going to go to committee. That's the process we've usually followed, is to initiate and then it goes to committee.
So why didn't we initiate last month then?
Because of the timing. There was a timing issue, and we had discussed it at committee chairs.
But I recall a justification that we might want to make changes in the committee, and once it's initiated, substantive changes are not allowed. So sending it to EDC at this point doesn't seem useful.
We can make changes in committee. We always, since I've been on the council, the way we've done it is that we initiate and then we can make changes. We can make changes right here, right now. We can make changes in committee. And that's just, yeah. So, Councilor Gilmore.
So I'm curious why we're removing hotel, motel, or inn, and I'm also curious why we're removing conference center. I know that maybe that's not something that we're interested in right now, but it seems like if that's something that comes up in the future, then it would just have to be changed. So I don't know why we wouldn't just leave it in. And if anyone can answer that.
Councilor Mass, it was your amendment?
Well, so
the inn part.
If you look at where the GI zone is, it's essentially in Precinct 3, which Councilor Alice represents, primarily along Wells Street, which has been rezoned a number of times to accommodate various uses. But I think the planning board probably thought it was very unlikely that a motel, it's not a major access point for vehicular traffic. So I think they thought a motel or hotel or conference center would not likely locate there. The same is true of the other locations, which are up on Wisdom Way, which is essentially the fairgrounds and the cemetery across the street. There's another portion at the beginning of the entryway to Greenfield from Montague along Montague City Road. And I suspect that the planning board, I haven't heard from them yet, but I suspect they thought these are not major points of travel, and it's not likely that there would be enough traffic to support that. That's why I'm not opposed to those removals, just the inn, which doesn't require the same amount of vehicular travel.
Councilor Alice?
So, as Councilor Mass pointed out, I do represent Precinct 3, obviously, where there is a very long general industrial area, and there are some buildings there that could, in fact, be used as inns under the definition of what an inn is. And specifically also to Councilor Gilmore's point, conference centers, because they're large industrial buildings that are empty that people have purchased and they sit idle and they can't really do anything with them. So I guess my main point was a substantive change is defined by the person who's saying it's a substantive change for the most part. And I can guarantee you that if someone wanted to put an inn there and they said, well, wait a minute, they took out, or they added a word that is what I want to do, and now I can't do it, that they would say, that's a substantive change, so you need to go back to the drawing board. So I don't see why it or how it hurts to have the discussion here and do it before it goes to committee and before we start the clock, because Lord knows we have had plenty of instances where we needed multiple meetings and multiple legal opinions as to whether we can or can't do something when it comes to a zoning change. So rather be safe than sorry on this, and it seems like a relatively small change to make prior to going to committee and prior to initiating. I also did, as Councilor Dolan said, thought this was going to be going to committee to be hashed out prior to getting here, but maybe I was confused as well. Thank you.
Councilor Wheeler?
I spoke at committee chairs in favor of initiating rather than putting it through. And my reasoning is that in deference to the months of discussion and deliberation that the planning board took around every single one of these changes in the use schedule, I find it to be I just can't personally agree with changing them at our whim tonight without proper discussion, without hearing from the planning board. I don't think that that's a substantive change. I would want to hear from either Eric Torog or legal that it is, because I'm not comfortable making changes tonight that, to my mind, would be uninformed. That said, I'm completely actually in agreement with Councilor Mass here on this. I just would like to move forward in a way that makes sense democratically, and to me that is to initiate the changes that have been made through hours and hours of thoughtful public meetings, and then to have the discussion in public hearing in collaboration with the planning board, because that to me would result in the best decision.
Councilor Stemple?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Councilor Wheeler just said, because I'm likely to agree with Councilor Mass as well. In fact, considering those at all. But same thing, I think my goal as the chair of EDC, I really wanted to make sure and ensure that this was a collaborative process and remain collaborative in respect of the work that was put in for this. And my understanding is these are here before us and there's no rush to push this through. If we need to reinitiate, so be it, we reinitiate if there's subsequent changes that come through the pipe. But I just want to, in the spirit of my leadership of the committee, to remain in partnership with the planning board and make sure that we're discussing and having those answers in that dialogue about why they made the decisions that they did.
Councilor Mass?
I don't disagree with my colleagues. First of all, I want to be clear. I think the planning board has done one of the best pieces of planning I've seen them do in a very long time on this zoning amendment. I agree with Councilor Dolan. My understanding and my request last month was this to be sent to committee specifically so it could have that kind of dialogue with the planning board before we initiated. But I would sort of make this suggestion to my colleagues. Those of you who think this is not a substantive change, if we vote it and then you have a dialogue with the planning board, you can add it back in if you decide that we were wrong. If it is a substantive change, then we did the right thing tonight. The other item that I'm concerned about, I'm not convinced is a substantive change, but I do want to bring to the attention of the council.
So we're still on the amendment to the overall motion, which is to remove the INS, INN. Are we ready to vote on that? Okay, so this is the amendment to remove INN from general industrial on the new zoning changes that are being initiated tonight. All in favor, raise your hand. The motion fails. Okay, so back to the overall. Councilor Mass.
I don't typically go to EDC, to a lot of those EDC meetings now that I'm on the committee, so I just want to, I know you'll bring that concern to them, and hopefully we'll get an opinion that it's a non-substantive change. I do want to bring the attention to the definition of automated vending machine, which neglects to include any kind of description of an electronic transfer that's done by a cell phone, which is a prominent technology now that kiosks use, and probably we should include that amongst the definitions, so that someone doesn't try to avoid our zoning by using technology. And I would defer to the committee on what that language should be. And I don't think it's a substantive change, because I think it's in the spirit of what is in the definition. So I just bring that to your attention.
Councilor Mass, just to be clear, it's not an amendment, it's just a attention. Okay. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of initiating this zoning change? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? The zoning change has been initiated and motion carries. Adopt the Greenfield Code Amendment. Councilor Gilmore.
The City Council move that it be ordered that the following ordinance are hereby voted and ordered. The following orders number are affirmed, adopted, and ratified as of the date approved, as listed below, and shall have full force and effect as of the date approved. FY 18-004, Chapter 566, Veterans Assistance Fund, Council approval November 15th, 2017. I'm sorry, would you like me to go through all? Okay. FY 19-072, Chapter 343, prohibiting single-use carry-out bags, January 16th, 2019. FY 18-091, Chapter 355, sewer use amendment, June 20th, 2018. FY 18-092, Chapter 415, water amendment, June 20th, 2018. FY 18-118, Chapter 027, finance ordinance, May 16th, 2018. FY 19-025, Chapter 400, tree ordinance, September 19th, 2018. FY 18-052, Chapter 555, police commissioners, November 20th, 2018. FY 19-065, Chapter 056, officer and employee stipend, December 19th, 2018. FY 19-090, Chapter 385, streets, sidewalks, and public places, February 20th, 2019. And Chapter 49, Article 1, lobbyist disclaimers hereafter stricken and per reasons as stated, as was vetoed by the mayor on May 28th, 2004.
The clerk believes you have to read it all.
Okay.
See how I put it on the clerk?
Sorry. Like all 3 pages. Oh, goodness. Okay. Adoption of Code 1. Adoption of Code. The ordinance of the City of Greenfield, formerly known as the Town of Greenfield, of a general and permanent nature, adopted by the City Council, is previously consolidated by the City of Greenfield, as amended through 2002, and the ordinances of a general and permanent nature adopted by the City Council subsequent to the date, all is revised, codified, and consolidated into chapters and sections by General Code LLC, and consisting of Code Part 1, General Provision 1 through Appendix A-600, entitled General Law, Acceptance and Special Act, and hereby approved, adopted, ordained, and enacted in the Code of the City of Greenfield, hereinafter known and referred to as the Code. Code supersedes prior ordinances. This ordinance and the Code shall supersede all other general and permanent ordinances enacted prior to the enactment of this Code, except such ordinances as are hereinafter expressly saved from repeal or continued in force. When effective, this ordinance shall take effect immediately upon passage and publication according to law and applied retroactively to September 1st, 2017 thereafter. Inclusion of ordinance and code. The ordinance shall, upon adoption, be included in the code as Chapter 1, General Provisions, Article 1, Adoption of Code. Copy of code on file. A copy of the code in loose leaf form has been filed in the office of the city clerk and shall remain there for use and examination by the public until final action is taken on this ordinance. And if this ordinance shall be adopted, such copy shall be certified by the clerk of the city of Greenfield by impressing thereon the seal of the city as provided by law, and such certified copy shall remain on file in the office of the clerk of the city to be made available to persons desiring to examine in the same during all times while the said code is in effect. Publication, filing. The clerk of the city of Greenfield, pursuant to law, shall cause to be published in the manner required a copy of this adopting ordinance in a newspaper of general circulation in the town. Sufficient copies of the code shall be maintained in the office of the clerk for inspection by the public at all times during regular office hours. The enactment and publication of this adopting ordinance, coupled with the availability of copies of the code for inspection by the public, shall be deemed held and considered to be due in legal publication of all provisions of the code for all purposes. Amendments to code. Any and all additions, amendments, or supplements to the code when passed and adopted in such form as to indicate the intent of the city council to make them a part thereof shall be deemed to be incorporated into such code, so that reference to the code of the city of Greenfield shall be understood and intended to include such additions and amendments. Whenever such additions, amendments, and supplements to the code shall be adopted, they shall therefore be printed and as provided hereunder, inserted in the loose leaf book containing the said code as amended and supplements thereto. Inclusion of new legislation prior to adoption of code. All ordinances of general and permanent nature adopted subsequent to the date given in subsection 1 and prior to the effective date of the ordinance given in subsection 3 are hereby deemed to be part of the code and shall, upon being printed, be included therein. Attested copies of all such legislation shall be temporarily passed in the code until printed supplements are included. Copy to be kept up to date. It shall be the duty of the clerk or someone authorized and directed by her or him to keep up to date the certified copy of the code required to be filed in, should we say his or her office, for the use of the public. All changes in said code and all ordinances adopted subsequent and the effective date of the codification, which shall be adopted specifically as part of the code, shall, when finally adopted, be included therein for reference until such changes or new ordinances are printed as supplements to said code, at which time such supplements shall be included therein. Altering or tampering with code, penalties for violation. It shall be unlawful for anyone to improperly change or amend by additions or deletions any part or portion of the code, or to alter or tamper with such code in any manner whatsoever which will cause the law of the city of Greenfield to be misrepresented thereby. Anyone violating this section of the ordinance shall be subject upon conviction to a fine of not more than $300. Severability. Severability of code provisions. Each section of the code and each part of each section is an independent section or part of a section, and the holding of any section or a part thereof to be unconstitutional, void, or ineffective for any cause shall not be deemed to affect the validity or constitutionality of other sections of parts thereof. Severability of ordinance provisions. Each section of this ordinance is an independent section, and the holding of any section or part thereof to be unconstitutional, void, or ineffective if any cause shall not be deemed to affect the validity or constitutionality of any other sections or parts thereof. Repeal of ordinances. All ordinances or parts of ordinances of a general and permanent nature adopted and enforced on the date of adoption of this ordinance and being inconsistent with any ordinance contained in the code and hereby repealed as of the effective date of the adopting ordinance, except as hereinafter provided. Ordinances saved from repeal. The adoption of this code and the repeal of ordinances provided in subsection 12 of this ordinance shall not affect the following ordinances, rights, and obligations, which are hereby expressly saved from repeal. A, any ordinance adopted subsequent to September 1st, 2017. B, any right or liability established, accrued, or incurred under any legislative provision prior to the effective date of this ordinance, or any action or proceeding brought for the enforcement of such right or liability. C, any offense or act committed or done before the effective date of this ordinance, violation of any legislation provision, or any penalty, punishment, or forfeiture which may result therefrom. D, any prosecution, indictment, action, suit, or other proceeding pending, or any judgment rendered prior to the effective date of this ordinance brought pursuant to any legislative provision. E, any franchise license, right, easement, or privilege hereto granted or conferred. F, any ordinance providing for the laying out, opening, altering, widening, relocating, straightening, establishing grade, changing name, improvement, acceptance, or vacation of any right-of-way, easement, street, road, highway, park, or other public place, or any portion thereof. G, any ordinance or resolution appropriating money or transferring funds, promising or guaranteeing the payment of money, or authorizing the issuance and delivery of any bond or any other instruments or evidence of the town's indebtedness. H, ordinances authorizing the purchase, sale, lease, or transfer of property or any lawful contract or obligation. I, the levy or imposition of taxes, assessments, or charges. J, the dedication of property or approval of preliminary or final subdivision plats. Sorry. K, any ordinance providing for salaries or compensation. L, any ordinance related to traffic or parking. Changes in previously adopted ordinances. A, in compiling and preparing the ordinances for adoption and revision as part of the code, certain grammatical changes and other minor changes were made in one or more of said ordinances. It is the intention of the City Council that all said changes be adopted as part of the code as if the ordinances so changed had been previously formally amended to read as such. B, in addition, the following changes, amendments, and revisions are made herewith to become effective upon the effective date of the ordinance. Chapter and section number references in Schedule A attached here to and are the ordinances that have been renumbered and appear to the code.
Is there a second? Report from committee?
This was unanimous positive, except I did notice up here we were talking about, we were saying her or him, referring to the clerk, and then later in the paragraph said her. So maybe we should just change that. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, we made a note of it for its friendly amendment. Yep. Thank you, Councilor Burson. Is my understanding that you did this? Okay. If there's anybody else to thank, I want to thank them because I know that this was a lot of work. So thank you all. Thank you, Town Clerk. Yay. All right. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. I also need to close the public hearing at 9:45. I do not believe this went to committee, the Just Roots lease to legislature for approval. So Councilor Stemple.
It did. It went to EDC. So the City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Martin, in order referring the Just Roots lease to legislature for approval, ordered that the council instructs the city clerk to submit the approved vote of FY19-079 to the legislature of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and request said legislature to approve an Article 97 vote for the lease.
Your second? Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Councilor Stemple?
Positive, unanimous, or unanimous positive, however you want to swing it. So essentially this is the culmination and the final step to the vote that we passed earlier this year, which puts forth the lease and gets that process underway. So I encourage my colleagues to support this tonight.
Councilor Son?
I think this is a no-go, it's a go all the way. Like Ashley said, we voted this to happen earlier, and I just think it should go.
Councilor Alice?
Given that there's a potential conflict of interest for me, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Councilor Wheeler. Is he here? I see his stuff is still here. Councilor Dolan, why don't you take it? I believe it's your motion. It's not your motion. 132.
I'm sorry. 3-1D of the Home Rule Charter, as amended, requests that the following ordinance be enacted, that the annual salary for the mayor shall be a minimum of $105,000 effective immediately in accordance with Article 2-42 of the Home Rule Charter, as amended, requests that each town city council receive an annual salary of $15,000 effective on January 15th, 2021. Further, that the non-substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the city of Greenfield.
Okay, I just need a second first.
It needs a second.
Could somebody just give me a second? Okay, and then there's a motion to table. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. This motion is tabled, and Councilor Dolan. 136.
Sorry, just let me find it. Move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the Code of the City of Greenfield as written in the strike-through attached hereto, Chapter 56, Article 7, Stipend for School Board Members and City Councilors, Section 18, Annual Stipend effective January 1st, 2023, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the Code of the City of Greenfield.
Motion's been made and seconded. Report from committee.
So we actually didn't take this up, and we are waiting for a vote from the school committee on this, so I would actually motion to table right now.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion tabled. So we were required to put this on the agenda because I wasn't here at the last regular city council meeting, but it was my understanding that this was tabled. That's right, 3 councilors objected to. Actually, Councilor Dolan, I believe that this was your motion on page 138 from the last city council meeting, and because 3 councilors rejected it, we do have to bring it up again. So I'm going to let you read it.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council place a non-binding resolution on the November ballot on the French King Highway zoning amendments. And I would like to withdraw this motion at this time, if I'm able.
That's fine. Thank you.
As a point of order, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to move for us to enter into executive session as read prior. I don't know if we still have council present with us. I would so move.
Yeah, actually, I think it would be best, though, if we could get through everything here and then go into executive session if the council chooses to do so, just so that we could adjourn in executive session.
First reading? Yeah.
Yeah, so we do.
Withdraw my motion.
Sure. Presentation of petitions and similar papers. Does anybody want to do a report from committee? No? Unfinished, yes, Councilor Stemple.
I'm sorry about that. So we just wanted to give the council and perhaps anybody who's still watching at home an update from the Economic Development Committee, and perhaps using this moment to give a little bit of a plug for a survey that we're conducting, the Greenfield Businesses Survey, sponsored by the Economic Development Committee in partnership with both the GBA as well as the Franklin County Chamber of Commerce. And I so appreciate their partnership in distributing this survey to their constituencies. The goal of the survey is to, follow up on the economic development panel we had back in August. And one of the key themes we heard there was, if we want to be more friendly to business, talk to the businesses, figure out what we're doing well and what we aren't doing so well. And so that's the essence of the survey. And so if you're a business owner or operator in the city of Greenfield and you're still up and you're watching GCTV right now, or you know someone who is, please spread the word. We want to hear from you. So I know that it was sent via email from the GBA and the Chamber. It's also posted to my council Facebook page. We're going to try and get it everywhere and anywhere so we can get as much feedback from local businesses as we can. Your responses to that survey will directly impact and help guide the remainder of 2019 into 2020 work that the Economic Development Committee does. So the goal is to focus on creating impact, being more business friendly, and supporting and attracting businesses to town. And I'd also like to share, or rather have Councilor Dolan share a piece of the work that he's doing for our committee.
So as a point of information for the council, from EDC, we are also undertaking a project to kind of assess and evaluate the various town boards and commissions. And we're doing it on a sort of informal level. We are interested in just figuring out which decisions are made by which committees and streamlining the process for business development if we can, see if we can move some of those, move some of the decision-making process into outside of a formal committee meeting, or otherwise find steps that we can take to streamline the process and make the work easier both for the members of those committees and also for the businesses and citizens who deal with those committees. So surveys have gone out. The plan is to, over the next year or so, talk to the chairs of those committees and their staff liaisons and just gather information. And if we find information that merits a change, we'll make some changes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Unfinished business. Old business. New business, we have a first reading. Councilor Wheeler. Page 143.
City Council first reading October 16, 2019. Approved payment of prior year FY19 invoice for Partech Solutions in the amount of $2,167.64 to be paid from the FY20 Parking Department budget.
Thank you. Motions for reconsideration. Councilor Alice.
I don't have a motion for reconsideration. I just had something for new business real quick. In 2 weeks from tomorrow, there'll be a lot of children out trick-or-treating, doing their thing. Just be careful while you're driving. Feel like we used to mention this every year. Things would come up, we'd mention them. Meetings get long, but I just wanted to put that out there and make sure that people are aware that that's going on. Also downtown on that same day on the 31st is downtown trick-or-treating and everyone is welcome. So hope to see everybody there. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so just so that everybody knows, if we do go into executive session, we're not coming back. Ever. Only kidding. So did I say motions for reconsideration? I don't remember. Okay, and executive session.
I move to go into executive session for the reasons previously read and tabled.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Okay, we're going into executive session at 9:56. Good night. Yep.
One, two.
You're